Welcome to another Memo in Conversation. My name is Lauren. I'm a staff writer at Middle East Monitor. Today I'm joined by Jan Chalmers, the co-chair of the Palestine History Tapestry. We will be discussing the Tapestry project, which aims to tell the story of the indigenous people of Palestine through traditional embroidery. The tapestry currently has 100 panels of embroidered images dating from 9,500 BCE to the present day. Each panel is stitched by Palestinian women in the occupied territories and the diaspora, with plans for more panels underway. Welcome, Jan. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Lauren.
I know you're involved in a similar project in South Africa, but what made you want to start a project on Palestine, and how did you start it?
Well, I think I need to start with why I did it. I first became interested in Palestinian embroidery after working 2 years in 1969 and 70 in Gaza, which is the home of my co-chair, Jan Chalmers, and she obviously wasn't born in those days, and I doubt whether her parents were, but it was a most enlightening 2 years I spent, and there I learned a lot about embroidery and about the way Palestinian women used it to decorate their clothing and to decorate their everyday things. I mean, it was quite an interesting way of using threads and things. So that was how I became interested in the beginning. But my work there was maternal and child health, and I worked in the Jabalia in a health centre there. This was long before I became involved in Indigenous projects. And the first one I worked on was in South Africa, where I was involved in the Palestine History Tapestry, which was a tapestry telling the story of the San, the Khoi, the Xhosa, and the skirmishes that happened in South Africa. And it was the Xhosa women who were in stitches telling their story and making it interesting for them to understand where they had come from and what had been happening through time. And you can see here the three friends, Jackie and two of the women who we worked with on the project. As a result of this project and what I learned and what I gained, in conversation with Ian, my husband, I was awakened to the fact that Palestinians have got a story to tell and that the women there do incredible embroidery. They're very experienced and very talented women who really do some extraordinary work. And so I invited a couple of friends from the UK to explore with me the possibilities of doing a project with Palestinian women and helping them tell their story about the land, the people who lived there and what they left behind. The award-winning Palestinian History Tapestry is a voluntary project. Everybody who works on it does voluntary work, apart from the actual embroiderers themselves, who are the ones who get paid.
It's an amazing project to be undertaking, and there must be lots of people involved in this process. So can you tell us a bit about the people who are involved in the project?
Yes, there are. We work in 5 main areas with 5 groups of women, and each area has a coordinator, somebody that Jahan and I and other members of the project have got to know quite well. And they coordinate the embroidery, and they get the women together, decide who's going to do the stitching. They negotiate how the women are going to be paid, what they're going to be paid. And it's not a hard negotiation. Whatever the woman thinks she needs to be paid for her work, she is paid for. They do the stoic work, they do the hard work. But in Gaza, Ibrahim Muhtadi is the coordinator there, and you can see him on the left-hand side. There are 23 people involved. Not all of them are embroiderers, but some of them sketch, some of them design, and he coordinates that. In Jordan, Basma Nazar, she works with 2 groups there. Yasmin Hajamir from the Naqab has got a group of women that she's working with. And Riham Khalil in Lebanon also has a group of women from Ain al-Helwi camp. And Dowlat works in Ramallah with the women there. 5 main groups that we work with. But in total, as you will see from the next slide, there are a lot of people involved, an awful lot of people involved in keeping this project alive and well. On this particular screen, you can see many of our patrons, and I'm really very pleased that so many very important people have become involved in the project. And just to run through them, Ghada Kami is our founding patron, and she's a doctor of medicine and a writer and an academic. Salman Abu Sitta, who is the founder and president of the Land Society. Rita Giacomin, a professor in public health in Birzeit. Akira Seta, who's the director of UNRWA. Jill Yudkin, a retired practitioner who runs the British Shalom Salam Trust, and they do very good work between Jewish and Muslim women, people, children mainly. Miriam Margolyes is part of our group. Naomi Klein, a Canadian author and social activist and filmmaker. Mazim Kumseya, who teaches science in Bethlehem. Jon Snow, everybody knows Jon Snow, who's a journalist and a television presenter on Channel 4. Mary Nazal is a barrister, and she lives in Jordan, and her career is focused on social justice. Ilan Pape, a director of European Centre in Palestine. Avi Shleim, emeritus professor here in Oxford, and Mads Gilbert, who's an anaesthetist who's done a lot of work in Gaza during the bad times. Sui Yang, who is an orthopedic surgeon, and she's done a lot of heroic work in the camps in Lebanon and in Gaza. Noor Masala, who's a historian, and Eugene Rugan, who is a Middle Eastern professor here in Oxford. But also, you can see there are lots of our embroiderers are there. Most of them are covered, as you can see. And there are artists, there are writers, and there are just people who generally want to lend a hand. And all of them have been doing a stoic job.
You're saying there's so many people involved in the project. How do you choose which images to cover and make panels out of?
Well, in the beginning, we had two historians, Mahmoud Hawari and Ghada Kami, who drew up a history list. And we spent a lot of time looking at the list, trying to decide what would be suitable, what we should tell, what would be easy to sew, whether it would be interesting, and whether it would be appropriate. And some of the panels came from that process. But the process we use now is there is a subgroup to the committee, mainly or mostly of Palestinian membership, and they choose the images that they think are suitable. They then go out to the coordinators in the various areas who will look at them and decide whether they have people that will stitch them or can stitch them. And some of the images that have been given out are images that the women have chosen not to stitch. They have said our stitches are to do beautiful things, not to do sad things. And so some on those sort of recommendations, images have not been stitched. But in general, it's a Palestinian choice nowadays.
And based on that choice, in which period does the tapestry start? How far back does it go?
Well, for our purposes, it goes back to 9,000 years before the Common Era. And it goes right through, you can see on the screen now, it goes right through to today. It's not an absolute history, but it's picked out certain images and periods of time. And it's picked up because there's been a trio of people living in this land, the Jewish people, the Muslim people, and the Christian people. And so it's picked out, hopefully, representation of all these people that have lived in the land and what has been left behind there. But as you get towards the end of the tapestry, you'll be able to see scenes that are happening today.
I understand
that there are over 100 panels here, so there's quite a selection and quite a variety, and they do vary in size. Most of them are they're all 30 centimeters high, but they vary in length. You can see some are quite short and some are quite wide, so you get an idea of the variation in the size depending on the subject.
And as you said, with there being 100 panels that cover a lot of Palestinian history or key periods of time of the history of the land, how many panels do you intend to make in total? And what images are you hoping to include that aren't already featured in what we can see on our screens now?
The tapestry as it is can stand alone as a rough history of the land, an interesting history of the land and the people. But there are things that occasionally people will ask if it could be included. And as a result of this, we've had musicians included, and we've had various sort of incidents included. But what we want to concentrate on now is the people and the traditions, and try to include some of those wherever they're fitting in the tapestry.
And with a particular focus on sort of the culture, is there a favourite panel that you can pick out and tell us about, and tell us why that one is your favourite panel?
It's very, very difficult to choose a favourite. Each embroidery is a unique piece of work. And having met some of the embroiderers and heard what some of them have had to say, like, I'm pleased to tell our story. This is a new way of expressing ourselves. Each woman has added a unique touch, and it's been reflected in her work. It's really not possible for me to say, or even fair to say, that I have a favourite. But there are some projects, some panels that are very popular, people have asked to see and asked to have copies of. And one of them, on this screen, you can see where I've met the women and watched them stitch and talk to them about what their plans are for the next panel. But I can't really say I have a favourite. They're all my favourites. I'm a bit like, I don't know, Bruce Forsyth in Strictly Come Dancing. They're all my favourites. But the one that people want to see and want to have repeats of is the boys on the beach. And this is taken from a photograph that was done by an Israeli photographer. And he did this in recognition of all children that suffer in the world. And this is quite an emotional panel, which people often think is upside down, but it's not. It's reflection of the children that were there playing on the beach. And the only thing that is for real is the football. And this is quite a popular one with people.
Can you tell us about the incident? What happened? What's happening in this picture?
What's happening here? It's the Baka boys. It's the Baka boys of Gaza who were playing on the beach when they were killed, and they were all from one family. And this is a sort of a ghostly reminder of what happened on that day, and the shadows on the sand of the boys playing, and the football, and then the sea above. And it's just a very, very emotional, very, very beautiful way of expressing sorrow for such a great loss.
And I think it's extremely poignant, a poignant panel pointing to the Palestinian experience. And as you said, each woman adds a unique touch and adds something to the work and brings their own perspectives, their own experiences. And obviously, different panels will speak to different people. So is it possible to buy a copy of the panels?
There are limited editions of some of the favourite ones that have been asked for a lot. So we do have limited edition on a glitch print on canvas. Also, there are postcards and greetings cards, particularly the nativity one, which is relevant at the moment. But there is a group of Palestinians working together on trying to produce merchandise using the cameos or using some of the panels. And that's a work in progress at the moment. But for sale, there are the limited edition canvases.
And as I understand it, those limited edition canvases are available on the website that just appeared on our screen.
Yes, they are, exactly. There's a shop. On the website, there's a shop. And if you go into the shop, there are other things to buy as well, but they are for sale there, yes. And there's a booklet too, which shows most of the panels that have been embroidered.
And now we can move on to the future of the tapestry. I know that when you completed a similar project in South Africa, the tapestry was, as I understand it, purchased and eventually hung in the South African Parliament.
Yeah.
Now, I imagine that may not be exactly where you expected that tapestry to end up, but what's your overall plan for the Palestine History Tapestry?
I'm hoping that it's not going to be my plan. I'm hoping that it's going to be a plan by my Palestinian colleagues and members of the project. But at the moment, we're trying to find a home for it. Each panel is securely rolled and kept separately. So it's in acid-free paper at the moment, and it's being stored. So we're looking for a home for it to be stored at the moment. But there have been lots of exhibitions. We've had many exhibitions of not only the actual panels themselves, but prints of them. And we have had them printed onto board, mounted on boards, so that they can be shown in places where they might not be as protected as we would like them to be if they were the real embroideries. But there are exhibitions in the pipeline, and this is $1 million question. What is going to happen to it? We've just got to find a home for it. And what would be ideal is a permanent place for it to hang. And you can see here, this is the exhibition, an expo exhibition that was held a couple of years ago in London. And it was all up one side and down the other. And it was amazing to see every single one there. For real, the real exhibition, the real thing.
And I know you said that as it is with 100 panels, it can stand alone. But are you hoping to hang it all together, or would you split it up?
The panel can be, it's designed to be hung as a complete work, but each panel can stand alone. And some of the panels have been used at various talks and exhibitions as a single panel. For example, when UNRWA had its 70th birthday earlier, I think it was this year or last year maybe, the UNRWA panel was used. And so some of them can be used individually and they can stand alone as a story. But the whole thing is designed to be together, of course. And there are collections too. You could have collections of children, the children's collection, or various. We had an exhibition at P21, the gallery in London, the Palestinian Book Awards before, when there was enough panels to put one to represent and to accompany each book, which was rather nice.
Obviously, hoping to do with COVID, but do you have any plans for a future exhibition where we would be able to see the panels?
The next exhibition, hopefully, is booked for Edinburgh. It was due to be this year, but now we've postponed it for next year. So that's the very next one. But the best exhibition is to go online and look at the whole timeline of it on the website. There one will get a taste of what it's like.
And I think we can see on screen one of the panels with the website address there. Could you tell us a little bit about this panel and the backstory behind it?
This panel's not an original Palestine History Tapestry design. This is a design which I think is a traditional design and was made in Gaza. And it's women, it's the henna party, and it's women celebrating a wedding, a future wedding, ululating and clapping and dancing in their finery. And it's just a very happy image, very happy embroidery, and it's used as our flagship embroidery. It's used to advertise the project with, so it's part of the front window of the tapestry, and it was one of the very first too to be stitched.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Jan. I think that just about concludes our time here. So thank you very much for joining us today, and especially thank you for sharing some slides and pictures with us and giving us what has been a fascinating insight into the Palestine History Tapestry project. I'm certainly definitely looking forward to seeing some of the panels on display in the near future, hopefully.
My pleasure, and I hope you get to see it, Lauren, and thank you very much. Thank you.
So to our viewers, thank you very much for joining us today. We'll be back at 4 p.m. next Wednesday for the next instalment of MEMO in Conversation, when we'll be joined by another guest. We look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.